back to the 80th anniversary of Batman, which is what I'm calling the Batstravaganza. We are on movie number 5 of the Batman anthology, and this time we are going back to Tim Burton directing with Batman Returns. As I stated earlier, Batman Returns was directed by Tim Burton, and it starred Michael Keaton as Batman again, but this time we have Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer showing up as the Penguin and Catwoman respectively, with a little bit of Christopher Walken thrown in there for good measure. I'm going to give you an overview of the story as well as some things that I liked, some things that I didn't like, and then my overall general idea of how I felt about the movie. This movie not only tells a story about Batman, but it actually sets up not just one, but 2 villains with the Penguin and Catwoman. And it actually starts out with the Penguin's origin story about how he was completely unloved by his parents, so much so that they thought to drown him in a river. Unfortunately, the bassinet floated. And he ends up with some penguins, and that is pretty much the origin story about how he came to be. Very affluent family, but absolutely no love to be had. 33 years later, he has returned to Gotham to pretty much claim his birthright, so to speak, and teams up with an industrialist by the name of Max Schreck. And when I say teamed up, I mean he more like blackmails him. Anyway, they get a plan in motion, even though the Penguin has his own plans. Meanwhile, Selina Kyle, who is a secretary for Max Schreck, finds a little bit more than she should have, and she gets killed by Max, although she comes back as the villainous Catwoman. And now Batman has to fight not just one, but 2 villains running around Gotham, and it may just complicate things now that he's seeing a very lovely Selina Kyle. I wanted to give a synopsis without spoiling everything, even though this is technically not a non-spoiler review. I can spoil whatever I want, but I didn't want to get too detailed. I love this movie. It is safe to say that this was my favorite Batman movie for at least 15 years. It is not a guilty pleasure movie because there's nothing guilty about enjoying this movie. In fact, my brother, when we did a top 20 list, he listed this as one of his top 20 movies. I did not. And I kind of regret it because I loved how this went. Number 1, the direction was much better in this one than the last one. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the direction was bad in the first Burton Batman movie, but this movie focuses more on Batman. This movie focuses more on Bruce Wayne. And even though there's more focus on Batman and Bruce Wayne, the villains get the appropriate time to shine. And that's not just one of them, but that's all 3. Max Schreck, Catwoman, and the Penguin. I want to talk about Batman first before I get into the villains. First off, like I said, he gets more time to shine, and he feels more like Batman in this. He feels more like Bruce Wayne in this, and because of that, I think that's why I connected with Michael Keaton's performance more in this one than I did in the first Batman. So I loved his performance in this one. I love the fact that he gets another love interest with Selina Kyle, but this one feels authentic. This one feels like there was actually a spark and it wasn't forced. And they both had like the side that they showed and the side that they hid, not just from one another, but from the rest of the civilized world. It was so good. It just worked out so well. And to segue into that, you had Selina Kyle, who kind of was this pathetic person at the very beginning of the movie. And then when she goes through her transformation, she is completely unleashed. And there were moments where you could kind of see her psyche was kind of breaking and she wasn't who she wanted to be, even though she was more fearless. And the relationship, as I said before, looked like it just worked out so well. How they figured out each other's secret identities. And then at the end, where she wanted to be with him, but she just didn't feel like she could be with herself. And I really think that this portrayal of Catwoman has been the best portrayal of Catwoman for the entirety of Batman lore. Next, I want to talk about the Penguin, who I completely have to say the same thing about him. This is the best Penguin we've ever seen in Batman lore. And to be honest, we haven't seen a bad Penguin. Burgess Meredith played a great Penguin in the Batman movie from 1966. The movie wasn't great, but he was really good. And so now we have Danny DeVito putting on the flippers, and boy, he kills it. And he has just the right level of camp, just the right level of sinister, just the right level of disgusting, all rolled into this one character. And are there flaws to him? Maybe, but I really don't see them because it's done just right. From the tragic beginnings of his character to the manipulations that he has. Maybe the whole him running for mayor was a bit forced, but that's more of a story thing. But then whenever he just decides to lose it, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna kill everybody. Well, maybe not everybody, but like 100,000 people. Like originally his plan was to kidnap all the firstborn of Gotham because he felt like his birthright was stolen whenever his parents dumped him out. He was their firstborn and he came from an affluent family. And so whenever that was stolen from him, he felt like it was his duty to steal from the other firstborn of Gotham. And you see, that's really a complete mirror opposite from Batman. And think about this. With Batman, you know, he was going for a walk with his parent and there was somebody that took them away from him. And in this one, his parents are out, you know, on a stroll with him and they dump him. And so now, instead of Batman saying, I'm gonna make sure that no, you know, child ever has to go through this trauma again, he says, I'm gonna make sure no kid ever gets to have the opportunities that were stolen from me. Wonderful, absolutely brilliant mirror to each character. And this leads me to the other character that I wanted to talk about, which is Max Schreck, played by the ever quirky Christopher Walken. And he, I would say, doesn't go full Walken here, but he goes Walken hard. And I love the personification. He actually had a little bit, it really seemed like he was maybe channeling a little bit of Donald Trump. And I'm not getting political in this, but what I am saying is that it's very similar as far as the mannerisms, the things that he does, the fact that he's trying to hide a lot of business proposals, not just from the public, but from his associates as well. And he just was a very well done villain, the kind of villain that you didn't need a mask or a cape, but just that general business guy, and was just as menacing as Penguin, but just not on as much of a psychotic way. There are some things that I do not like about this movie. Number one, the fight scenes I don't feel were all that great. And I understand that the bat suit for the first two Batman movies were really stiff and hard to move in. But this one still just didn't have that the fight scenes that I really wanted. And there's an issue that I have with the story about halfway through, where the Batmobile is being controlled by the Penguin, and the Penguin causes the Batmobile to cause this huge amount of damage. And even though they rat the Penguin out to the public, that not that he was in control of the car, but that he was playing the people of Gotham, there still are no repercussions on Batman. We never see him have to answer to those things. Now, of course, Bruce Wayne could probably wave some money at the problem and problem solved. But that would have been kind of nice to take an extra 5 minutes to where either he had to explain it or he had to answer to those responsibilities in some kind of way. And so I felt like there were some loose ends that weren't tied up. But overall, it doesn't really matter as much to me. This movie is so flippin' good. The best Batman movie to me for a long time, at least live action. We're coming to the next Batman movie, and if you're thinking we're coming to Batman Forever, there's one that you have forgotten about. So that's it for Batman Returns. Tell me what you guys thought about the movie in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends, and as always, this is Cameron with CBM Reviews. We'll see you next time.